Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. It's the heart of the Central Valley and the heart of the state of California. It's a great day. We got a little bit of a late start, but we're going to try to get the entire show in today, so I hope you're able to stay with us and be here by the time we get to the end. Today's going to be a little more kind of fluid. I have some ideas that I want to talk about, but I haven't laid out an organizational approach, so just bear with me as we go through this today. I think it'll be worth your while. You know, I don't know about you, but I've noticed there's been a lot of stuff going on in the world, and I've talked to a lot of people in the New Thought community that, you know, they have various thoughts on the whys and the what-fors and the how-tos, in other words, how to address it and stuff. And it's things that I'm going to talk today about things that I've talked about, but I came across something as I was preparing a class that I teach the other day, and it's out of the current rendition is the Extension Study course in Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, and the courses that I had was called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life, but it was a group of 48 home study courses that Dr. Ernest Holmes put together to provide the teachings of Science of Mind to a community of people that were interested but weren't necessarily near some place where they could attend a New Thought, a Science of Mind church, if you will, or study group. And so he put this together, and there's just some great teaching in there, and it was out of print for a period of time, and it's back. Like I say, the current incarnation is this particular type, and you can get it through most of your CSL churches. You can get it through Divorce. You can probably publishing. You can probably get it through Amazon. I don't know, but it's readily available out there, and I highly recommend it. If you are a practitioner of religious science, or if you're somebody that's new to the concept of new thought or religious science, or even if you're someone that's been practicing as a religious scientist, if you will, for a period of time, maybe even years, it's a great resource to go back to and to re-energize, reaffirm, and maybe even fill out some of your spiritual foundation as you walk your spiritual path. You know, Ernest Holmes, when he wrote the book Science of Mind, he referred to it as a philosophy of faith, a way of life. And understanding it as a way of life becomes critical when we understand the power to change our life that is available to us when we begin to understand that there are certain spiritual principles, spiritual laws, an idea of the divine beingness of God itself, and how we understand that divine beingness and how we relate to it as individuals becomes, well, it's not only is it important, but as we begin to understand it and our relationship to it and with it, it becomes a powerful tool in creating a better life for each and every one of us. Imagine, if you will, and if you're not a New Thought person, or if you're new to New Thought, some of the concepts I may talk about today may be a little bit unusual or different than what you're normally used to. But imagine, if you will, that there is a creative force, and we can call it God, that created all that is. But it's not just the force; it's consciousness. It's a beingness. It's a spiritualness. Okay, that we oftentimes refer to it as the one life or the one mind, and that is God, and it is also our life and our mind that we utilize it. But there's other aspects to God besides consciousness, and that is the body, and the body that we understand it to be is the material reality that we experience in our physical life. But between the mind, the spirit, if you will, and the body, the physical aspect, there's this subjective, we call it the subjective aspect of God, and that's where there's something that we call the law exists. And we're going to get into understanding the law and the way the law works in our life. There's a lot of people that, they get excited. They hear about the law of attraction. And, if you're one of those people and you're really into the law of attraction, stick with us today, because we're going to kind of flesh this out in a way. There's so much more to it. And people oftentimes make the mistake of thinking that, if they just get the law of attraction down in their life, they're good to go. They've got it covered. And when things don't exactly turn out the way that they'd like it to turn out, oftentimes they begin to believe that maybe this thing that we call the law of attraction isn't what it's been built up to be. And in truth, it's that and that much more. But it's not just the law of attraction. It's the law, the ultimate law, and we often refer to this as the law of cause and effect, of which the law of attraction, if you will, is a subset. And there's other laws that we talk about, but they all come back to an understanding that there is the one law, the law of God, the law that exists as God existing as the creating beingness of all that is. As God thinks, the law responds and demonstrates in what we call the body of God. And it's an amazing thing when we begin to look at it. It's even more amazing when we begin to understand that on some level that scenario plays out for each and every one of us in our own life. And like I say, if we get caught up that it's just like the law of attraction, not only do we lose the spiritual beauty of what is, but we also lose our connectedness with our source, if you will, with God. And that's so very important. So in my preparation for class that I teach, like I say, I went back to one of the earlier lessons in Dr. Holmes's home study course. And it's, if you happen to have the course, it's lesson 10. And there's a supplement to that lesson that's entitled Thomas Trord's Bible Mystery, Bible Meaning, Metaphysical Interpretations of the Bible. And we're going to talk about this today because in this segment, as Dr. Ernest Holmes is talking about Judge Trord's understanding of the law, of how Jesus taught the law, and how we implement the law in our life, we'll begin to see that there's so much more to be understood, to be embodied, but there's so much more that's available to each and every one of us. But we got to get to that point. And if we don't know what that point is, then oftentimes, like I say, we attempt to put the law of attraction into work in our life, and it doesn't seem to work. But in truth, the law always works. Not the law of attraction, but the law, the one law, the law that is God that expresses. And that's why it's important that we have this understanding. One of the things that Jesus taught was that it's done unto us as we believe. And people think, they get to thinking, that, well, if I just sit and I, focus on and use affirmations for the law of attraction, that, all I've got to do is do that, and like attracts like, and I'm going to create that in my life. That's like a small piece of a greater picture. It's kind of like the old story of the blind men trying to describe an elephant. One of them feels the legs, one of them feels the trunk, one of them feels the ears, one of them feels the tail, and they all have a different understanding. And none of them give you the picture of what the elephant is. When we look at the law of attraction and we think that that's the law, we've actually missed a greater component of the law that's very significant, very important, and something we need to understand as we put the law of attraction into our life experience. We utilize it. So as I came across this and I was reading it, I thought, this is incredible. I don't know about you, but have you noticed that there's a lot of chaos going on in the world right now? And I've taken a couple of weeks off from doing the shows because we were busy in some other areas. I'm looking out in the world, I'm going, it's just nuts, right? I don't know. Like I say, I don't know about you, but people are on all sides. They're getting upset and all sorts of stuff. This is where understanding the law becomes very important as we begin to walk our spiritual path. Because no matter who those people are, no matter what side they are on, if we talk about a side, no matter where they're at in their life, and some are there and some are here, and it doesn't make any difference. There's one God, as we understand it. And all that is God expressing, which means that no matter who it is we're talking about, no matter what their side is, no matter what their beliefs are, no matter what their prejudices are, no matter what it is that they're attempting to do or undo, they're all God expressing as those individuals. Now, the world has kind of gotten really crazy, I get that. But we're not going to straighten up the world by going out and telling people how they've got to believe, act, in order to make the world a better place. This is one of the things that Dr. Holmes talks about when he talks about how we put the whole practice of science of mind and spirit into practice in our life. You know, this philosophy, faith, this way of life part. And that is in the understanding that we have to respect the law. We have to realize the law is always in effect, and we have to harmonize ourselves with God, with divine principles, in order for us to, if you will, reap the benefit of the law as it works for us. So we're going to start with that today. I'm going to take our first break, and I'll see you when we come back.
Chef Big Will presents the original Bonton Cafe. Stop by 7307 Highway 49 North in Mariposa for the best blackened or southern fried catfish. Go and eat good food and sweet drinks, including but not limited to Cajun and Creole, smoking barbecue, hush puppies, fried pickles, alligator tail, etouffee, prime rib, tri-tip, po' boy sandwiches, crawfish, oysters, fried okra, and so much more. Daily lunch and dinner specials. Sunday brunch from 10 to 2. Enjoy the taste of New Orleans at the original Bonton Cafe. And see their full menu at theoriginalbontoncafe.com.
I'm Greg Steen, your host for the Truth for Seniors show. Glad you're joining us today and coming to you from Central Valley Talk in the heart of Fresno. So every Wednesday at 2 you can find us, and we'll be here giving you the most up-to-date and accurate information possible, bringing you experts, as we promised, from lots of different fields related to seniors, senior needs, the caregiver needs, and everything that goes with that. So if you're looking for the right information and timely information, this is the place to be.
Fresno Dixieland Society presents the Sounds of Mardi Gras, February 7th to the 10th, 2019, at the Doubletree by Hilton. Get your tickets today. For more information, go to FresnoDixie.com or call Linda at 209-534-1924. Again, that's 209-534-1924.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week, because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Got lactose intolerance or dairy allergies? Discover delicious raw milk and discover dairy the way it's supposed to be. We provide tours and would love to see you. Come visit the cows, watch the milking, the cheese being made, and learn all about raw milk. We're just 20 miles south and west of Fresno, California. Call to schedule a tour at 559-846-9732.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Connect with Dr. Alan Hedberg. Watch Doctor Teach Me to Parent on CentralValleyTalk.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Listen to The Psychology Report anytime at thepsychologyreport.buzzsprout.com. Visit booksbyhedberg.com and order a book for your personal growth. And join the conversation on twitter.com/Alan G. Hedberg.
I'm Greg Steen, your host for the Truth for Seniors show. Glad you're joining us today and coming to you from Central Valley Talk in the heart of Fresno. So every Wednesday at 2 you can find us, and we'll be here giving you the most up-to-date and accurate information possible, bringing you experts, as we promised, from lots of different fields related to seniors, senior needs, the caregiver needs, and everything that goes with that. So if you're looking for the right information and timely information, this is the place to be.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling, from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. So we're talking about the law today. And we understand, those that have a New Thought understanding or that are part of a religious science of mind organization, that this thing that we call the law is not separate from divine principle, that which we call God. It is kind of the process, if you will, through which God creates and acts. Judge Troard, who was a great influence on Dr. Ernest Holmes, wrote extensively on the teachings of Jesus, and subsequent to that, Dr. Ernest Holmes wrote extensively on the teachings of Jesus also, because we incorporate so much of what he taught into our spiritual understanding. The law is one of those things. We don't get that necessarily in that form from Jesus, but we do get it in a way. And so I want to read you. Dr. Holmes wrote, he says, when Judge Troard refers to the necessity of obeying the generic law with a capital L, he means that we must come to understand what the law, again with a capital L, is and how it responds and operates through us. The law of mind is omnipresent. Therefore, it is at the center of our own being. And because of this, each one of us individualizes it. Now, it's a concept that the law is, as divine power, divine principle, as life itself is at the center of our beingness, so is the law. And we always are using the law, and it always responds to us. What does that mean? We're always using the law. Well, one way to think about it is kind of like we're always using the law of gravity. We don't think about the law of gravity, but yet it affects everything we do in our moment-to-moment life experience. We don't think about it, but it's always there and it's always acting. So is the law of mind, the law of God, the law of cause and effect. And it responds to us because God responds to us through our thoughts and our thinking. And Ernest Holmes and New Thought teaches the concept of right thought or right thinking. And what we mean by that is not some rigid alignment with things that we find difficult to deal with, because in reality, what we're aligning ourselves with is God itself, or divine principle. And we align ourselves in thought, thinking the right way, when we think in harmony, peace, beauty, love, abundance, things that are life-affirming in all the ways that we would like to see life-affirming. But our physical life, our physical experience, and something we call race consciousness, has taught us and told us that life is full of limitation, trauma, chaos, dis-ease, disharmony, so on and so forth. And if you want, you can lump all those things under the heading of evil, if you will. And they are experiences that we experience, no doubt about it. But they're not experiences that we have to experience, and neither is that which we call evil. And yet it's something that we do experience. Well, how do we transcend this? How do we get over this? Well, one is, first we have to recognize that there is this thing that we call the law. This law of cause and effect, this law of mind, this law of God. And two, we have to understand that it's always reacting and responding to us. And three, it reacts and responds to us by operating through us, but it does so at the level of our belief. And this was, like I say, this is one of the things that Jesus taught And it's very important we understand that it's done unto us as we believe. And oftentimes so many people think that if I'm just involving myself with the law of attraction, then that's all, where I need to focus my belief. But that's not so, because our belief is the totality of what it is we believe. And we get caught up sometimes. We have our baggage, we have our stories, we have our judgments and so on. And Jesus tells us not to judge and tells us that we need to put our story away, to put our faith in God, to love God and to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. All these things he taught. And it's not that what he taught was different than what has been taught before him, but what he taught was, he in today's world, I guess you could say he was an aggregator. He took spiritual teachings and he brought them into one singular teaching that he could bring into the world. Now, he was kind of radical for his day, and he wasn't well received. We know some of the stories. If you bother to delve into some of the deeper history, there's a lot more there that we can learn about this man. But he taught something, and he taught something that was so important, so revolutionary, that in some form it has existed in the human consciousness through various religions for a couple of 1,000+ years. But there's a backstory to what he taught, and there's an underlying philosophy that if you look through history, you can find it kind of rears itself up at various points, oftentimes referred to as metaphysics, sometimes various other spiritual teachings, if you will. But what it was an understanding of God as an everywhere presentness, that God is a power, God is a presence, and God is all that is to be known, and God responds to us by responding through us, because we were created, and again, this is part of what Jesus taught, in the likeness and the image. And it's not the image that you see when you look into the mirror, sorry to say, but it's the image of you as a spiritual being. And that image is that you are connected with God in a way that is so incredibly intimate that there really is no separation. And that doesn't mean that you're not who you are an individualized aspect, but you are here to express God in your life on this physical plane, to learn and grow, to walk your spiritual path, to understand more about this world, to understand more about your place in the world, but more importantly, to understand more about the divine principle, God, and how it unfolds in your life. And one of the things that we as we start our journey and we begin to move forward is the understanding that God responds to us, always. But we have to understand what that always means. Little word with a great big meaning. So, Dr. Holmes says again, I'll go back here, and he says, Troward refers to the necessity of obeying the generic law. What he means is that we must come to understand what the law is and how it operates through us, what the law is. Simplistically, it's the law of cause and effect. It operates through us at the level of our belief. And that's about as simple as you can get. Now, ignorance of the law excuses no one. You may not know it, but you're still using it, and you're still subject to how the law unfolds in your life. And this is one of those interesting things, we talk about in various theologies and spiritual understandings this thing that we call sin. And sin is an interesting word that actually comes from an archery understanding, and it means mistake. And the thing is, when we make mistakes, it's in the mistake itself that we receive the punishment. Now, there are people over the years that believe that it was God that punished us. But in truth, it's the law reacting to us. If you take from somebody, something that's not yours, you have set yourself out aside, separate from God, reality, the unity of humanity, if you will. And as you take from somebody, what you've taken is ultimately going to bring some kind of disruption into your life. And it's amazing how it plays out. When you cheat somebody, when you get angry, when you fail to forgive, and if I'm using words about things that maybe you have some vague, religious memories about, well, we need to forgive 7 times 70, and, we shouldn't steal, and the 10 Commandments, all these things were rules, if you will, or teachings that Jesus really distilled down into the two that he said, on which all the laws and the prophets hang, and that is to love God with all that you are. I'm paraphrasing. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if you are God expressing as you, and you are, then when you love God with all that you are, you're also loving yourself with all that you are. And if you love your neighbor as you love yourself, that's unconditional love. But if we look out in the world today, you don't see a lot of unconditional love out there, do you? You see a lot of people drawing up lines, taking sides, wanting to, rule over somebody or yell at somebody or accuse somebody or label somebody. All these different things are things that people do that actually spiritually separate themselves from the truth of who we are. We are God expressing as us, and there's only one God and one expression. When we begin to, in consciousness, judge, go to anger, and all the other stuff that we just talked about, each one of those things, our belief in the truth of what God is, our belief in the reality of creation and our place within it, it's like it gets diminished a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit. And yet we have people that get caught up in this stuff, and they come and they say, okay, I want to be a new thought person. I want to be a religious scientist, if you will, and I'm going to use this law of attraction, and I'm going to attract to me, a job, a car, money. It doesn't make any difference, health or whatever. And then when they don't see it unfold, they don't understand why. And ultimately they end up just saying, well, it doesn't work. But it has worked. It's done unto them at the level that they believe. And the belief is the totality of their consciousness. If they believe in evil, if they believe in hate, if they believe in lack of forgiveness, if they believe in their story, our stories are a limiting factor. Our stories are it's all the stuff that's happened to us. And it is a history, if you will, or a history, however you want to say it. But that's all it is. If we allow ourselves to be chained to our story, and Holmes Troward talks about being in bondage to our story, then it holds us back from being all that we can be, if you will. So one, we got to understand what the law is and how it works through our life. He says, we cannot impress upon ourselves too strongly the impossibility of living by two contradictory principles at the same time. This is Troward saying this, and Holmes is echoing this understanding. We cannot live in two contradictory levels of consciousness, if you will. I cannot believe in a God that's everywhere present and at the same time accuse somebody of being something that I find distasteful, or I judge them, or whatever, or that I see even myself as less than. We can't do this, because as we do this, we create a contradiction within our own thought, our own consciousness, and our own belief. But yet, you'll say there's so much stuff, and there really is, right? There's so much stuff out there that, we choose to find it offensive. And I use the word choose, not because it may not be, that's not my point, but our choice to judge it as so is our choice. We can look at things out there in the world, and they are either in harmony or they're not in harmony with divine principle, with God. And that's that other part of the teaching that Jesus talked about when he said, when you judge with righteous judgment. What he's talking about there is judging, is looking at the world and saying, this is in alignment with God, and God is good. This is not in alignment with God. It's still an expression through whatever it is of God, but it's something that I choose not to have as a part of my life. And so we establish boundaries, but we still recognize that's God expressing, and if it's an individual, they are an expression of God, they are our neighbor, and we love them. We just maybe don't bring them home at night for dinner or whatever. That's a concept that some people find difficult to incorporate into their life experience. I mean, come on. I got to like this person. I've spent, all day or all week or all month or maybe years fighting with this individual over something. You got to give it up. Not give up your position, if your position is in alignment with good, give up your angst and anger. Love them. You know, it's amazing. Sometimes, you know, they used to say, what is it, sugar can draw a lot more flies than salt. Goodness can draw a lot more good into your life. And that is, and this is where we see the law of attraction working in our life. And what is that? It's the law of cause and effect. I create good within my own consciousness, within my own heart, within my own being, and good is attracted to me. And that's the way it works. Now, I can sit down and say, I'm going to attract good in my life. But if I don't believe in good, if I still believe in separateness on any level, I'm still attracting to myself, but I'm not attracting to me what I say that I want. And we need to understand this. And looks like it's time for our next break, so I'll see you when we come back.
Attend the Kearney Park Renaissance Fair November 10th and 11th from 10 a.m. till dusk. There will be historical medieval battles taking place all weekend long. Vendors with fine handmade items of jewelry, clothing, leather goods, weapons, both real and safe for the kids. There will be food and drink, an extensive food court for fine fair dining, and tasty indulgences, complete with a beer and mead area for the parents. The presentation of this historical era in an enjoyable, educational, and safe environment makes it a sure bet for family entertainment. $15 for adults, $10 for kids, seniors, and military. Come in plain clothes or bring out your best medieval gear. For more information, visit twofairladies.com or search for the Kearney Park Renaissance Fair on Facebook or call 916-223-6752.
Certifying foster homes for placement of children suffering from abuse, neglect, and abandonment. To help, contact Lisa Caceres with Angels of Grace at 559-268-0000.
This is the home you've dreamed of. Located in the quaint city of Exeter, it offers estate-sized lots with stunning views of the Sierra Mountains. Yet is less than 15 miles to the city of Visalia. This retreat offers a sense of aloha and has unbelievable views from all three levels of this exquisite home, with decking on every level. The home, at nearly 5,000 square feet, has real wood flooring, a master suite on 2 levels, a formal living room with fireplace, formal dining room with inlaid wood, separate family room with a second fireplace, soaring ceilings, and a built-in bar. The kitchen features granite countertops, stainless steel appliances including a wine refrigerator, a large Genair cooktop, microwave, dishwasher, and double oven. The third level offers a large game room and huge walk-in closet. The backyard is an oasis with a pool, gazebo, and manicured walking paths. This home was built for entertaining and so much more. To buy this breathtaking home, call Kim McElhen at 559-707-7711. That's 559-707-7711.
Harness the power of the sun and cut your electric bill down to size with Soltech Solar. Call today and request a free quote at 559-325-6907 or visit soltechsolar.com.
Looking for work? Tired of minimum wage? For as low as $200, become certified as a forklift driver at the Certified Forklift Training Center. Call 559-325-8097 or visit cftc.net.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
So welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. And today I'm talking about this thing we call the law. And it's kind of a funny thing, but, you know, once we begin to understand it, at least at some levels, then we can begin to really put it into practice, utilize it. Because if you can conceive that you were created in the likeness and the image of the divine in order to express life here, and to express life maximally, not to just exist, but to really express life maximally. And I'll touch on that a little bit more later, or if not, we'll get to it in the next segment next week, because this may end up being a two-parter. But it's important. to understand that our purpose for living is to live life maximally. That's God's gift to us, God's desire for us, and in truth, that's the gift that we give back to God by our doing this. But we have to understand what that is and how to do that. So moving forward, Holmes says, the true law of our being is one of liberty, but not one of license. In other words, when we begin to understand the law and we consciously put it into practice in our life, it is a law of liberty. It is a law that allows us to live abundantly, to live healthily, to live in harmony, to live in peace. But not only that, as we do that as individuals, we also create that consciousness within the world. And that's also a topic for a talk that I've did in the past, and maybe we'll do it in the future. But if you want to change the world, you start with changing yourself from within. What a concept. Moving forward, he says, Troward tells us that Jesus washed his disciples' feet to illustrate that we must first obey the laws of nature if we expect them to obey us. Now, understand, putting this into perspective of the day that this happened, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. That was like the lowest thing that anybody could do. And the point that he was making is he wasn't the great exception. He was an example, and that there's no level, no place that we're beneath or above, but in truth we're all equal. And that's part of what he tried to get them to understand. And of course they had issues with that, because our egos tell us that, we should be, I'm this and that, and we have our place in the world, or maybe it's our place in the family. We have one place in the world, and that is being in an expression as God, in God as itself. I talked about judgment, and I talked about anger and hatred. But there's another really big thing that we often utilize as human beings that separate us from the divine principle, from God, and that is fear. And fear, biologically we developed and evolved with fear as being a big part of the way the brain unfolds, and that's true. But as we begin to unfold for ourselves in our spiritual path and our spiritual journey, we actually begin to rewire how the brain is, and that's understanding that is part of understanding why we call this the science of mind and spirit, because we recognize that there are scientific truths that are part of what we experience as reality, and as we understand those and understand how they play out in our day-to-day life experience, we can see how empowered that we really are when we do get this understanding. We can rewire our brain. We can rewire our brain such that fear is not the predominant responsive, reactive thing within our brain. It's important. Sometimes there are things we need to be afraid of. We need to step back out of the way of that car. We need not to touch something that's hot. Those are important things. But there are people that their whole interaction with life is what we can call fear-based. It's always about what is the next thing that's going to happen that's not good. Why am I always, I've got this much, I'm not going to have more. There's never enough. And it's important also that we understand that as we speak these words, and if we speak them out loud, that we give power to them. And they can be pretty damning sometimes, because it's kind of like an affirmation. We can affirm our good, we can affirm prosperity, we can affirm health, but then we complain that there's not enough, or we complain of this, or we complain that, well, that may break down, and we give voice to our fears. And oftentimes that can be very self-destructive, because the law always responds. And it responds greater when we vocalize, but it responds always, no matter what. So, Jesus took this time and he did this act to teach his disciples that we're all part of the oneness of God, that there is no one that's above or below, that we're all equal. We love our neighbors as we love ourselves. We're all equal. Well, that takes a lot of things that are the basis for a lot of situations in the world that cause problems off the table. There is no judgment about a person, who they are, where they came from, what their race may be, what their sex may be, what their orientation may be. It all's got to come off the table. We love our neighbors. We love ourselves, period. End of report. No asterisk, no subtext. That's it. That's what he taught. But we have to understand how that plays out in our life. And this is what Holmes is talking about, teaching. And so he says here, and this is a great paragraph. I read this years ago, and when I came across it last week and I read it again, it like really stuck out in my mind. It says, obedience to the divine nature, to God, is an essential part of the teachings of scriptures of all ages. Obedience to the divine nature. In other words, aligning ourselves in mind and heart, in consciousness, with principle, with God, with goodness. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about being a slave to some teaching. He's talking about aligning ourselves with love, aligning ourselves with good, aligning ourselves with, a realization that our neighbor is a part, no matter who our neighbor is a part of the greater good, as God expressing. Very important. He says, again and again, we are admonished to remain true to this nature, and repeatedly we are told that the effect of going contrary to this nature we are told what the effect is of going contrary to this nature must be. We are told to repent of our mistakes and to enter into the salvation of joy and right action. Repenting of our mistakes. That's not like going to jail, a mental jail or a spiritual jail. It's a matter of realizing that we've made a mistake, straightening ourselves up in our mind, in our heart, in our consciousness, and not making that mistake again. Now, in that process, it may be that we have to do some forgiveness work. It may be that we may have to accept some things, some individuals in our life that, because we've held prejudice and judgments we've not necessarily wanted to do. Got to get over it. He says, we are told to repent of our mistakes and enter into the salvation of joy of right action. The salvation of joy and right action. Now, where does that take place? It doesn't take place out somebody else's yard. It doesn't take place by somebody else doing something for us. It takes place right here, in our heart, in our mind, in our beingness. That's where our joy is. That's where our goodness is. That's where love exists. And it's within the center of our being is where the divine principle, God expressing as us, also exists. Repent ye therefore, and be converted, he says, that your sins, mistakes may be blotted out, and when the times of refreshing shall come from the presence of the Lord, you shall be saved. Repenting from our sins means no longer continuing in our mistakes. No longer continuing in our mistakes. In other words, if we're still going to check in with the evening news, we stop doing so with anger, hatred, judgment, or fear, worry, anxiety. We see that what's going on in the world is just what is. But we know that where we're at right here, right now, there's a greater good and a greater power that we have the ability to connect with. And in our choosing, in our choice to own that for ourselves, whether you realize it or not, subsequently you're really changing the world. And it's something that we can do. And we can all do. I want to go on here. He says, Trord makes the point plain that Jesus was teaching a system of thought, a way of life, rather than a theological code or a code of speculative ethics. That's what we just talked about. He states that the basis of the whole philosophy of Jesus was an understanding of the unity of God with man, as man. If we understand that there's a unity, there's not a separate. So many of us grew up with an idea that God was something, somebody, some being that was outside of, away from, and not part of ourselves. We were taught and told that our relationship with God depended on a various number of things. But all those things dealt with a God being away from us, that we are not intimately associated with. In New Thought, we understand that God being everywhere present, that God exists as us and is expressing His life through us, and has given us the power of choice to either put ourselves in bondage through our choice of separation through anger, judgment, so on and so forth. We covered some of those things. There's a whole long list. You can find many of those things in your own life, more than likely. But when we put those aside and we begin to seek Seek first the kingdom of heaven. And where do we find the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God, is found not outside, but within. This is what this man taught. So we can go through and we begin to look at this teaching. He tells us to look first within ourselves. Seek first within ourselves. What are we seeking within ourselves? We're seeking the divine principle, the light of God, the light of life that is within us, that is available to us from the inception of our first breath and is with us as we transition beyond this physical life into our next spiritual experience. So we have to understand that. He says, Troward points out that the perfect liberty of the individual must be in accordance with the will of God. The perfect liberty, what does that mean? The perfect liberty means the ability to express life maximally. You know, oftentimes people think that, oh, I'm looking at the clock. I think we're going to have to take our next break. I'll pick this up about expressing life maximally, and I'll give you a metaphor that you can understand. So I'll see you when we come back shortly.
Chef Big Will presents the original Bonton Cafe. Stop by 7307 Highway 49 North in Mariposa for the best blackened or southern fried catfish. Go and eat good food and sweet drinks, including but not limited to Cajun and Creole, smoking barbecue, hush puppies, fried pickles, alligator tail, etouffee, prime rib, tri-tip, po' boy sandwiches, crawfish, oysters, fried okra, and so much more. Daily lunch and dinner specials. Sunday brunch from 10 to 2. Enjoy the taste of New Orleans at the original Bonton Cafe. And see their full menu at theoriginalbontoncafe.com.
I'm Greg Steen, your host for the Truth for Seniors show. Glad you're joining us today and coming to you from Central Valley Talk in the heart of Fresno. So every Wednesday at 2 you can find us, and we'll be here giving you the most up-to-date and accurate information possible, bringing you experts, as we promised, from lots of different fields related to seniors, senior needs, the caregiver needs, and everything that goes with that. So if you're looking for the right information and timely information, this is the place to be.
Fresno Dixieland Society presents the Sounds of Mardi Gras, February 7th to the 10th, 2019, at the Doubletree by Hilton. Get your tickets today. For more information, go to FresnoDixie.com or call Linda at 209-534-1924. Again, that's 209-534-1924.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week, because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Got lactose intolerance or dairy allergies? Discover delicious raw milk and discover dairy the way it's supposed to be. We provide tours and would love to see you. Come visit the cows, watch the milking, the cheese being made, and learn all about raw milk. We're just 20 miles south and west of Fresno, California. Call to schedule a tour at 559-846-9732.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. Okay, I want to pick this up where we left off. I just read that Troward points out that the perfect liberty of the individual must be in accordance with the will of God. Okay, and real quick, he says that let us not misunderstand this conception of the will of God. The nature of God is happiness. How could Spirit or God decree any will towards anything other than happiness? And he goes on to say, how can we seek happiness for ourselves at the cost of somebody else? Think about it. And yet so many of us do. We want someone to do something for us that we know is not in accordance with their beliefs, or we want them to believe what we believe when we know that they believe something differently. We have the law that responds to us, and we have the ability to actively participate, in the use of the law in our life. But we have to align ourselves with principle, with God. I'm going to pick this up a little bit. We'll finish this off next week, but before I close out for today, I want to talk about one other thing that's important to understand, and that's something that so many times people think that because we're seeking to invoke the law, if you will, to use the law, whether it's the law of attraction, understanding the law of cause and effect, doesn't make any difference. But as we begin to put this into practice into our lives, all we got to do is think about it and then sit back and wait for something to unfold. And that's not the way life works, and it's not the way that divine principle unfolds. If you think about life itself, life is struggling. We're born into a world that we can't understand, we can't relate to, we can't walk, we can't get about, and we learn how to do that. But that learning process is a process of struggling. As we grow and we have to go to school, we learn how to interact with family, society, and so on, and we grow. Oftentimes, though, we have the misunderstanding that a good life is a life free of struggle. But I want you to think about something. It is through struggle that we do grow. And when the human being gets to a point to where they are not willing to accept the struggle, not willing to step up to the challenge, that's when life really begins to cease for them, a life of fulfillment. And there's a good metaphor for that we can use. If you've ever had or have known someone that has broken a bone, on their arm, and they put a cast on it, 4 weeks, cast comes off, and if you compare this arm with this arm, this one's gotten small, and this one, is bigger. And the reason why is the cast has kept the muscles in this arm from having to do anything. They just exist. They don't have to struggle. And you don't think about using the arm, the muscles in the arm as struggle, but it is a form of struggle. When they're not being used, when they're not going through the process, they begin to get smaller. It's called atrophy. Well, we atrophy in life when we give up attempting to move beyond, to seeing the next challenge and moving forward. It's that way physically, and it's also that way spiritually. God put us here, not fully developed, fully autonomous with all good. We were created in the image and likeness, but we have to discover it for ourselves. And then as we discover it, we have to work through the process of philosophy, of faith, a way of life. And the greater we understand that role, the greater we understand acceptance, the greater we understand what really divine principle, what God is in our life, the greater we understand our role, to that greater extent we can more actively, more prosperously, more abundantly, more in harmony live our lives out. And the people that begin to get that, if you will, it's like, you look at them and you wonder what's going on. It's something that cannot be taught in the sense that I can't give it to you through teaching. It's a path, a journey that you have to walk, you have to go through experience. In other words, you have your own spiritual journey, and it's a struggle, if you will. Thousands of years ago, the Buddha looked out at life and he said, all life is suffering. And then he listed his 4 noble paths to overcome that. What he didn't do through those 4 noble paths is bring life to an end so that there was no longer suffering. He said, all life is suffering, first noble truth. Second noble truth was we suffer because we have a desire to acquire, to do things in the world. The third noble truth was we can overcome it, and the way to overcome it was through the Eightfold Path, and that's more of the Buddha's teachings. But the important thing is to realize that he got it, that we didn't have to suffer Now, he laid out through his eightfold path a spiritual pathway that works, and a lot of people in the world use it. It's not the only way. There's many other ways, if you will. There's many other roads to the top of the mountain. But to understand that we do suffer in life, we suffer in life because we place life before God. We place the desire for the physical reality before the understanding of the truth of God expressing in us, as us, and our relationship to the law as it moves through us. When we begin to understand that, we can make a mindset shift, if you will. And it really is just shifting our mindset, changing our beliefs. Dr. Holmes, or the Science of Mind organization, whoever title is, called this Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. Some people have said change your beliefs, change your life. Basically, it's the same thing. When we learn that we can literally change our lives through changing our mindset, changing how we interact with life, understanding our relationship to life, to God, and then consciously, actively beginning to participate in how that unfolds in our day-to-day life experience, things change, and it's amazing. So, as we look out into the world today, as we see the chaos, we see the unhappiness, we see accusations fly across the evening news or the radio or whatever it is, we see it sometimes in our homes and our cities. People are turning themselves off to friends and families because they don't agree with whatever their particular position is in the politics of the world, if you will. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love God with all that you are. On these two hang all the law and the prophets. We've turned our back on that as a society for the most part. There was a time when Dr. Holmes was alive, when he was teaching, and many of the ministers, the practitioners that directly were taught directly by him, were teaching in the world. There was a rather prominent growth within religious science of mind and spirit community. And we see and have seen this pass away in more recent years because people have turned their backs on spirituality. They've gotten more caught up into the physical world and seeing life as a limited experience. And the only road to happiness is for others to do something for them, or for life to provide something for them or to them in order for them to be happy, failing to realize that happiness starts within us. God lives within us. Spirit is there. There's one life. That life is God. That life is my life now. That life is your life now. It's an awesome thought. It's a powerful understanding. One of the reasons why I enjoy taking these times to put these shows together is to maybe stimulate a thought within you, tickle some gray cells, if you will, in the back of your mind, make you want to seek out further understanding of who you are, understanding of your relationship in this thing we call life, and in relationship to divine principle, that which we call God. We're amazing beings. This is an amazing life, and each and every day is a gift of God, from God, to each and every one of us, individualized. Imagine that God can take for each and every being on the face of the planet and gift them with that day. And in potential, what they can do with that day is incredible and awesome. But it's not until we begin to learn a few things, make some different choices, begin to seek to change the way we think, to understand the spiritual teachings of this man we call Jesus and how they affect our day-to-day life experience and the good that can come to it. It's available to each and every one of us. It's awesome. It's good. It's God. And I'm going to close it there for today. Thank you for being with me. I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll pick this up next week. We'll cover some more of this because it's really important to understand what our relationship is to the law and how Jesus taught that relationship. So until I see you next week, know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. Because truly, wherever you are, God is there. All is well. See you next time. Thank you.